Okay, good morning. My name is Melissa Ochel, and I'm one of the associate directors in the Center for International Education at the College of Charleston. We're talking this morning with our partner, American University in Cairo, to learn more about what the experience for our students would be. And we're here with Sarah Shalash from AUC. So she's going to start by telling us a little bit more about AUC and her role. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, and ahlan wa sahlan, as we say in Egypt. The American University in Cairo, also known as AUC, is an English language, American-style university located in Egypt's capital city of Cairo. We are fully accredited in the US, and we have a very similar kind of academic system and academic calendar, course syllabi, and grading system that you would be used to at Charleston. And even though we're an American institution founded by Americans over 100 years ago, we are a local university in Egypt. So 95% of our students are Egyptian. And we have almost 6,000 undergraduate students and another 1,000 graduate students on our campus. As an exchange student, you directly enroll as an international student at AUC. So you have access to all the services in our university and all of the courses across our course catalog, depending on availability and prerequisites. As you may know, Charleston is a semester-approved exchange program, and that means that you can come to AUC for the fall or the spring semester, and you would be continuing to pay your regular Charleston tuition. So that includes your financial aid and any scholarships that you may receive. So it makes it for an affordable option to go abroad. It also means that hopefully we can send you one or more of our Egyptian students in exchange. So they could come to Charleston and spend a semester learning about American history and being in a totally new experience for them as well. My name is Sarah Shalash. I am AUC's US Study Abroad Manager. I am based in our New York City office. So luckily I'm on the same time zone as you and happy to speak to you if you have any questions about AUC. I'm also Egyptian American and I'm a Study Abroad alumna myself of AUC. So I'm very familiar with the campus and with the experience as an American student coming from a US college, spending an exchange semester abroad in Egypt. I am the primary contact for all American students up until you receive an acceptance letter. And at that point, you are one of our students, and we have an office in Cairo who will begin communicating with you and getting you ready for your semester.
Perfect. Sarah, can you talk a little bit about course registration, arrival, orientation, what our students can expect as they start their semester?
Sure. So as I mentioned, AUC has kind of an on-campus support team for all of our international students. They are called the International Programs and Services Office. We call them IPSO. And they are your primary contact from the moment you land all the way, from the moment you get your acceptance letter, but also when you're in country, from when you land all the way throughout your semester at AUC. So before you actually even arrive in Cairo, they will send you a sign-up form to opt into a free airport meet and assist, which I highly recommend you do. That sends an AUC representative all the way into the arrivals hall to help you with your tourist visa, to help you even with customs if you need it, and to bring you out into arrivals and then put you in an AUC van and bring you to AUC housing to check in. So very kind of smooth process upon landing. And then they're your main contact throughout the semester. They are also responsible for doing your course registration on your behalf. So before you arrive in Egypt, you're going to do some of that course planning. And before you apply, I can help you with that and provide any syllabi you may need to get approved by your advisors ahead of time. But the course registration will actually take place online by this Cairo team. So they'll go through with all of your top course choices with you, several alternate choices to figure out kind of the best schedule for your semester. And I think students usually ask me about visas. So one of the benefits of coming to Egypt as a US passport holder, EU passport holder, or Canadian passport holder is that you can actually get our tourist visa upon arrival in the Cairo International Airport for $25 US. If you hold a different passport, happy to work with you kind of ahead of time to do that planning. The majority of our exchange students do hold US passports, and so they are able to do all that process upon arrival. None of that requires kind of pre-work, which is nice.
All right. And there's an extended orientation when they arrive as well, to sort of get them settled in on campus.
So orientation is usually about 3 days, and that will take place a couple of days after you kind of settle in and move into our on-campus housing. And the orientation is a really wonderful time for you, not only to meet your American peers who may be there on exchange programs, but also to get to know the Egyptian students. So our orientation is for all incoming students that semester. You will have specific sessions that are kind of tailored to you as an international student, because you do have, very specific needs also, getting kind of oriented into the country itself, and also kind of going on excursions and starting to explore your location, but also learning about the university itself. So you'll attend sessions on health and safety. There's optional course advising. There's a drop ad period, so you may still be making some last minute changes to your schedule. And there's also an optional survival Arabic class. So this is for a small extra cost, but recommend it for students who have kind of no background in the Egyptian spoken dialect of Arabic, to kind of learn some great phrases to keep in your pocket when you're going around or taking a taxi, but that's optional. And you'll get a tour of campus and start to meet our local Egyptian students, many of whom are kind of our student ambassadors, and really excited to meet you and get to start those friendships.
Perfect. What are some of the most popular subject areas that exchange students select?
Yeah, so it may seem obvious, but AUC attracts several exchange students who have a particular interest in the Middle East, whether that's Middle East studies, political science, history, anthropology, Egyptology, women and gender studies, or Arabic, right? So those are kind of a lot of the courses in the humanities that are kind of an immediate link to students who think about Egypt. But as I mentioned, we are fully US accredited, and we have several courses in STEM and business. So our School of Science and Engineering and our School of Business are both US accredited, and have very strong programs that are actually the most popular among our local students. And so we're seeing more and more exchange students come to us and maybe take one or two classes that kind of connect more closely to Egyptian and Middle East culture, but then being able to find classes in STEM and business that could actually work for their major and get them credit to really stay on track in their programs. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, that you can explore and become integrated into a new culture, potentially learn a new language, but also be able to fulfill a lot of your requirements at home. Again, you can take any course across our catalog. So we have a lot of students who will take maybe one or two. If they're a STEM student, for example, they want to take a class in biology, they want to take a class in chemistry, and then might take a really fun, Islamic art and architecture class to get out and have field trips and get to explore the city while they're doing that. So it can be kind of flexible based on your interests and your course needs. And that's kind of one of the benefits of coming to a big liberal arts university abroad, where everything is accredited and you shouldn't have too much trouble transferring back those credits.
Perfect. That sounds good. Our students love being able to combine subject areas.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, can you talk a little bit about what being in class is actually like? Is it lecture-based, discussion-based, group projects? What can our students expect?
I think it'll be a little bit of everything depending on the academic field you're pursuing. So probably similar to Charleston, you may have kind of bigger lecture classes in some of the foundational sciences or one of the big intro classes. If you're taking classes in our humanities, they are often capped at 15. And so you will have a lot of discussion and readings. But again, it will kind of depend on the type of course you take. One kind of shared experience, though, is that because 95% of our students are Egyptian, you may find that you're one, if not one of only a handful of international students in your class. You're all dealing with the content of the course in English, so you can feel confident that you can participate and really learn and absorb the material. But you get to do it with a completely different group of peers, and really share a unique perspective as an international student and learn from them as Egyptian students. So it's a really nice way of making friends immediately, and really feeling integrated on a campus abroad. You're not kind of isolated with other American students. You're really kind of in a class with Egyptian students, learning the same material, but all coming from very different perspectives.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Hey, Lily, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was experiencing a lot of issues with signing into my account.
No worries. We were just talking about what being in class at AUC is like. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been so far in the classroom?
I'm taking 2 Arabic classes right now, so I have a lot of international students in those classes. But if you're in if you're not planning on taking any language courses, you probably will have just completely Egyptian students in your class. But everyone is very welcoming, and I mean, it's just like what you would expect from any American university. Like, some people will be friendly and some people are just more focused in their studies.
Thanks, Lily. All right, Sarah, do you want to tell us a little bit about housing in general, and then maybe we can ask Lily about her housing in particular?
Yeah, definitely. So Lily can share this as well, but the majority of our exchange students are living in AUC's on-campus residences. Those are located within the walls of campus. Will be kind of familiar as a dorm style. We have single and double rooms. We also have some, we call it near campus, so right outside the walls, but still just a 5-minute walk to another building that has kind of apartment style. So you will be able to choose to live alone or live with a roommate. And they are gender separated, but there is kind of communal lounge space that's used. And most of the students in the dorms are international students, but the majority of our Egyptian students, local students, commute to campus. But if they're not from Cairo and don't have local family, they are also living in the dorms. So there may be some Egyptian students from outside of Cairo, and then several Arabic-speaking students from the region. So a lot of students from Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, for example. But maybe Lily can share a little bit more about what it feels like to live in those dorms.
Yeah, Lily, do you want to share a little bit about housing? Lily? Let's see if she can hear us. Oh, we have lost. Oh, Lily?
Sorry, I'm at a mall right now. So, like, it keeps connecting me to the Wi-Fi's mall. And I was just like, no, it's weak.
Lily, do you want to tell us a little bit about the housing where you're living?
Yeah, so I'm living in the off-campus dorms, the ones that are just like a few blocks away. And they're really nice. They were built recently. And actually, my roommate, she's from Bahrain, which is a small island near Saudi Arabia. She says that like they weren't even built when she went to undergraduate school here. She's a master's student. So all the facilities are super new if you're considering living off campus. But I've also visited a lot of my friends' dorms within campus, and they're still nice. There's just like a few problems with like flooding and what you would expect with Charleston is still exists in what's it called, at AUC. But as for the facilities, I mean, everything is so nice. Like, I remember I texted my Arabic professor that like it's excessively nice. Like, it's nicer than I'd ever expect.
Good to hear. All right. Thanks, Lily.
I should mention that the campus that Lily is on and that the majority of our programs are on, except for our intensive Arabic during the semester, is only 10 years old. So the campus is pretty state of the art and still feels very new. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Sarah, do you want to talk in general about clubs, organizations, events that are typically offered during a semester for AUC and exchange students?
Yeah, so another really great benefit of directly enrolling in a university abroad is that you have access to all of the services at the university, but also all of the activities. So we have over 60 student clubs, and a lot of those are started by students themselves. So they are sometimes academic related. There are a lot of dance troupes and dance teams. We have an award-winning Model United Nations and Model Arab League that are very kind of popular among our local students, but also attractive to a lot of exchange students. And so all sorts of ways that you can kind of get involved with other AUC students who, again, will be primarily Egyptian students, kind of leading those clubs. But you could also start your own. So students have done that for a semester. And the other way you can get involved and kind of get out into the community is to join a community service club. So there are several of those. They've been functioning all the way through COVID. So finding safe ways to really see the city and see the surrounding community and get involved. But there are also all sorts of events happening throughout campus all year round. So you'll find lots of concerts, you'll find lots of lectures in several different fields, guest lecturers and guests to campus. So you'll feel like you're really on a vibrant campus, that you would kind of expect those types of events in the US. You're just going to be doing it with different people and different kinds of experiences. And I'll also say that, you'll meet Egyptian students in class, again, in class, in clubs, and potentially in the dorms or as your roommate. So really from day one, you're getting the opportunity. You may need to take some initiative and kind of introduce yourself, but you will be able to meet local students from day one, which is really nice.
Right. Lily, have you been able to attend any campus events or join any student organizations or clubs yet?
Not really any campus events that are like generalized, just because like the first week and the second week were really hectic of trying to figure out my schedule. But I always see them happening, and if I wasn't rushing like from class to class trying to find it through the maze, then I would definitely like stop by and see what's going on. But yeah, there's almost always like music and some sort of games and giant gatherings of students in like the main square. I'm not quite sure what that's called, but if you guys have ever seen pictures of like the AUC library, it's just right in front of the library. But I am planning on joining the calligraphy club because I know how to do calligraphy in English, so I would love to learn how to do it in Arabic. And I also was thinking about joining the astrology club, not because I believe in anything of that sort, but they said that they would take us to an observatory, or they have this giant tower near the student residences. I'm sure that would be used as well. But yeah, I'm just kind of settling in, so I haven't really gotten the opportunity to be that involved yet, but I'm planning on being more involved.
Great. All right, perfect. Sarah, what are some of your favorite parts of the city or campus? What are your recommendations for students to check out?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the campus, what's nice about AUC is that it kind of offers the best of both worlds, and for lack of a better word, kind of an oasis in the middle of a very bustling, busy city of Cairo. So it's lush, it's green, and it's a really relaxing campus. So if you want to find space in the garden to do yoga or to study or to hang out with friends, you have that space, and then you can kind of choose whenever you would like to go off campus and kind of explore beyond that. So in that sense, I really like that the campus offers all sorts of different types of environments for you. Off campus and in the city, I really like the parts of Cairo that offer kind of a look into the rich, diverse history of the place. So closer to kind of downtown Cairo is actually our original campus that's still open and you can visit. You have access to as an exchange student. And from there, basically along the banks of the Nile River, which is right in the middle of Cairo, you can see ancient Egyptian monuments, you can see remnants of colonial history, you can see Islamic, Christian history, and you can see how modern the city has become in a lot of ways. So Cairo is really a place that kind of brings together several different cultural influences, and you can see that in the architecture and the types of people that you'll meet. So being right in kind of the thick of it is a really fun experience for a lot of our exchange students.
Yeah, great. Lily, anywhere you've found that's really fun to hang out or explore since you've been there?
Not quite. I am a really ashamed to say this, but I haven't like gone and visited Old Cairo very much. Yeah, everyone's just kind of like figuring everything out. But I would say like, as Sarah said, sorry, not Sarah. I don't know, like I usually go study at the mall just because there's just so many restaurants and cafes and it's close by. And then like on the weekends, me and like some friends will go out and journey into New Cairo or the surrounding cities. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much to do. Like I feel overwhelmed by the amount of things that there is to do. And I'm really happy that I'm here for a year, so I get the opportunity to really get invested in the city and its culture, because it is extremely diverse, and hopefully if you guys get the chance to come, like you'll have friends like me that can just lead you around and show you everything, because it's definitely hard to do it on your own, especially if you don't know any Mia, which is what they call Egyptian. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Sarah, what are some popular local foods that our students should try?
Yeah, so I think you'll find a lot of kind of dishes that you would find at like a Middle Eastern restaurant, maybe in the US. You're going to find some things that are going to sound really familiar, like hummus and stuffed grape leaves and shawarma and even our version of falafel, but they usually have a little bit of a twist. Some of them because they're just ancient recipes, and others just because we just prepare them slightly differently. But lots of meat options, but also lots of vegetarian options. And Egypt is starting to introduce more vegan options. So I have found that you can do it. Lots of different types of salads, but also very, very, very good meats and skewered meats and that type of thing. A lot of rice, a lot of bread. But really good, and you will, if you can find some kind of authentic places, you'll get a really good meal. But also you have some of the familiar like Western fare. So if you want a Starbucks or you want a McDonald's to get through your day, you can also do that. And so you have options for both, but a lot of different kinds of sandwich places, a lot of kind of dips with bread, a lot of kind of eating with your hands as well. But I think very accessible in terms of flavors, not very spicy, so kind of easy on the palate for people who may not be as familiar with it. Would you agree with that, Lily? Have you had anything that you're like, oh, that's a really standout dish, like koshari or something?
Okay, I definitely have a sweet tooth, so there's so many like sweet things. I forgot the name of it. I think it's like
Kunafa.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've had kunafa, and then I've had I don't know, like, so I'm friends with mostly Egyptians actually, and they've just been like making me try everything. So I always like try to write down the name, but then I never actually remember it somewhere in my notes. But I've tried so many different Egyptian sweets, and they're all amazing. As you said, like they definitely have a good variety of like vegetarian options, not so much vegan options. I think they're heading in that direction. But what was funny, like I think a few weeks ago when I think IPSO, they took us on a trip to visit a museum. I forgot the name. It's on my Instagram if you want to look at it. It's CFC Cairo. But anyways, they took us on a trip and they like distributed all the food. And my friend who is vegan got like a taco with like French fries in it. It was it was kind of sad, but it was really funny at the time. But I mean, they are trying. Which I admire.
Yeah.
And I will say there's a kind of a new movement even with farm to table. So, when you get settled, Lily, and when students get settled and kind of explore some of the off the beaten path kind of things, there's a lot of ways for you to spend a weekend kind of even on an organic farm and eating some really good locally made food. And so Cairo is a city of 20 million people. So there are a lot of people doing all sorts of things, their own initiatives, their own food ideas, new restaurants, everything is opening all the time. So you will explore a lot, but the kind of the basics of the food is relatively comfortable. We don't recommend that students drink tap water. But other than that, hopefully your stomach will be able to adjust relatively quickly and kind of eat those foods and enjoy the sweets. There's a cafe culture and tea drinking culture across the Middle East, but very much so in Egypt as well. So you have a lot of people kind of offer you tea. It'll likely be sweet as the default, kind of hot tea and coffee. And you'll see people sitting at cafes a lot and hanging out until late night. And so there's that kind of experience as well, which is really social and fun.
Awesome. Sarah, how do students get around the city, and how would they get into sort of old historic Cairo too?
Sure. So Lily seems to be walking, which is wonderful. Cairo is not the most pedestrian-friendly city to get from neighborhood to neighborhood, but within a neighborhood, it's definitely possible. There are fewer sidewalks, so that's my word of caution. But otherwise, it is a very walkable place in parts of Old Cairo and downtown Cairo. But the majority of our students, local students, actually commute to campus. So AUC has set up an extensive bus service that has Wi-Fi, and you get on with your AUC ID. That goes to every residential area of the city. I think if you're living in our on-campus or near-campus dorms and you're not commuting every day, it might make more sense to just pay by the ride if you'd like to go from New Cairo, where our campus is, to another area of the city. But otherwise, I think most students will just take an Uber or a taxi, because most of the students are sharing rides, and that's a pretty affordable way of getting around. You can just put your US credit card on the app, and so you don't have as much kind of interaction in Arabic if you don't feel as strong doing that. And it's usually quicker than being on a bus that has several stops. So I would say Uber and taxi is the easiest, most affordable way to get around the city. And then for longer kind of trips outside of the city, there are several buses, trains. There's a 2-hour train to Alexandria in the north, for example, that's very affordable and very easy. So easy, just kind of again, 20 million people in the city, so can feel overwhelming for a lot of students who come from, not even just small towns. I live in New York City, and that's not even half that amount of people. So that's the kind of transition for people, even in the first few days, to deal with kind of a busy, bustling city and kind of figuring out how to feel comfortable navigating that together. Most of our exchange students are not really alone for long periods of time unless they want to be. And so you can really travel out in groups and kind of support each other in that as well.
Yeah. Lily, have you adventured on the bus or an Uber or taxi yet?
Yeah, like from day one, like everybody's just been taking Ubers. And I mean, I know a few people in the ALIN program, which I believe is just like a language intensive program. So all their classes are in downtown, which is about a 45-minute drive away. And they take the bus regularly. And they don't seem to have any problems with it. And I have a lot of other friends who are international students that also live off campus, like actually off campus, like in a city or a town away. And a lot of them bus as well. But for most of the people that live on campus that want to get out, they'll just take an Uber. And it's very, very cheap, like in comparison to perhaps what you would buy in Charleston. And everyone always owes each other money. So like it's an easy system, because yeah, people are always like running out of money and getting more money. So yeah, it's not that hard to navigate. I mean, I walk as much as I can.
And I should also say that, Egypt is a very cash heavy society. So it's always good to have small change and good to have cash on you. But, what's nice about Uber is that you can at least have that kind of already covered on your phone. So yeah, but again, you kind of always are with other study abroad students. And so you figure it out together, which is nice.
Yeah. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about how English is spoken maybe outside of the campus in New Cairo, and then if they visited downtown Cairo?
Yeah, so I think Lily kind of alluded to this. It's not widely spoken. Most Egyptians you meet are extremely friendly. And so there will be a lot of hand gestures and a lot of kind of basic phrases in English or repeated phrases in English, very open and welcoming to English speakers and to Americans specifically. But you're not going to be able to hold probably on the streets of downtown Cairo a long conversation in English unless they have experience learning the language. So it's more about navigating in ways where you're adapting to a new culture and you are, asking very nicely and politely for support, and people will do that. They'll walk you somewhere if you need directions instead of communicating it in perfect English. So it may take a few steps to get there. But again, because exchange students go on those types of trips with the friends that they've made, whether they're Egyptian or other American students, there's usually at least one person in that group who's either taking Arabic or wants to really practice their Arabic. And so it's really a way for someone to kind of take the lead and maybe help them through that linguistic exchange, which is nice. Have I lost you?
We can hear you. There we go, Sarah.
Oh, I think I'm back. I'm not sure how much you missed. I was just saying that most exchange students, again, will be hanging out with the friends that they've already made, whether that's Egyptian students or other American students. And someone in that group speaks Arabic and is excited to practice the Arabic. And so, again, it's kind of a matter of who feels comfortable kind of putting themselves out there a little bit and practicing. And what's important to note, I think, for your students, and Lily, I'm sure, can attest to this, is that most American students who are learning Arabic before they come to Egypt learn what we call modern standard Arabic. It's what you read and write. That's actually significantly different than the dialect that is spoken in Egypt. And so a lot of students, even if they have a background in academic Arabic, actually it's new for them as well. So a lot of our American students are kind of coming in the same starting point in terms of the Egyptian spoken dialect. So as I mentioned, we have that survival Arabic class the first week of classes. That could be an option to kind of get familiar with some common phrases. But otherwise, it's just picking it up from your Egyptian classmates. It's an easy dialect to learn, but it would be significantly different than what you're used to learning in class. So that's just kind of a word for people to understand. That's usually a surprise to a lot of students who've studied Arabic before they come to Egypt.
Yeah. Lily, how's your Egyptian Arabic coming along?
So fortunately, I really connected with my Arabic professor at CFC, and he made me aware that it is very different. A lot of letters sound different. A lot of their basic nouns are completely different. So I took some initiative this summer, and I studied some Egyptian Arabic before I came. So my understanding is a lot better than my actual speaking, because everything is very different. I remember the first time I said I'm sorry to one of my Egyptian friends, they just started laughing at me because it just sounded completely different than how they say I'm sorry. And I was like, even that's different. I was just so frustrated, but you definitely pick it up. You just have to listen to what people say. And I mean, as Sarah said, usually there's one person in your group that knows a lot of Arabic, whether it be a different dialect or the Egyptian dialect. And usually people are willing to wait and figure out what you're trying to say. But I don't know. It's different, but it's just another language. You grow used to it.
Yeah.
And I should also mention that that's kind of off campus, but on campus, all of our students speak fluent English. They're taking the classes in English. They may be more or less kind of comfortable speaking outside of class. That's really going to be up to them. But you can have access to all the services on campus. So if you want to go to the gym, you want to join an athletic team, you want to join a student club, you can feel comfortable doing that in English. Or you need to go to the clinic, or you need support on campus. All of that is accessible to you in English. But again, off campus, it just may take a little bit more initiative to you're learning a new place, and so.
Yeah. Last time I was in Cairo, Sarah, all the signs were still in Arabic. Is that true still?
It depends where you are. The majority of kind of the big signs are actually in English and Arabic, and I think some of that is still from some of our colonial history. Some of those are really old signs, but you'll find that it's Google Maps is actually pretty well established in Cairo. So if you look on Google Maps, even the tiny streets will be named in kind of transliterated English or transliterated Arabic. So definitely possible to get around on the streets by looking at the signs. But again, it's gonna, people are very helpful and would like to be a part of your experience and a positive experience about Egypt. So again, putting heads together and getting around and using a few apps, you'll be fine.
Yeah, perfect.
Part of the fun.
Last question. What are your must-dos, Sarah, for students who are coming to AUC for a semester? What's on the top of your bucket list for them?
Yeah, so for me, in the city of Cairo, I'm not sure, Lily, if you've made your way down there yet, but in old Cairo, this is actually, I think, the first mosque that was built in what is now modern day Cairo. But in Ibn Tulun Mosque, it's a huge mosque. They have a minaret, so what you would, like a tower that you would see in in a mosque, and it actually has a staircase that wraps around the outside of the minaret. I think it's actually an Iraqi style, and I don't think many of them exist in the world anymore. And so you can pay like an extra kind of 5 Egyptian pounds, and they will take you up into that minaret. So you are on the outside of this minaret on a mosque, and you can see the expanse of the city. I actually first, I think, I visited it in a class at AUC when I studied abroad, but a lot of students don't necessarily have that experience or know to just ask to be taken up. And if you want to see the whole city at the same time and hear, thousands of calls to prayer all at the same time, which is a pretty unique experience, that's a really great place to do it. And otherwise, I think Cairo has a little bit of something for everyone. So, you will find a really cool budding art scene if you want to go to some really good concerts. Some really great art galleries have opened, and, pottery places and some really cool activities that you might not associate with Egypt, but are very Egyptian in style and Egyptian in the people that they serve. And it's a really cool way of seeing the city and learning about the city through culture and art, but also outside of the city. So, you can make beach trips while you're there. Long weekend is enough time to go to the Red Sea to the east, or even to the Mediterranean in the north. And I recommend that students experience a fun beach. I mean, they're coming from Charleston, but the sun and the warmth and the fun beach time in Egypt is definitely worth it. And then, going eventually to see some of the ancient Egyptian sites, I think is a must see before you leave Egypt. But Egypt is such a big country with 7,000 years worth of history that it's a little hard to kind of scratch the surface in less than a semester. So I really like that AUC is a semester-long program option for your students, because it gives you, and Lily's there for a whole year, which is wonderful, really gives you enough time to hopefully get settled, figure out a new kind of school and university life, but also get to have weekends and weeknights exploring a really fun place. But
Lily, what's on your must-see list for this semester?
Actually, I didn't take initiative to plan out where I wanted to go, but what was on my list has already been accomplished. So
Good.
I mean, it's really simple things. Like I really wanted to try Egyptian tea, because I just have trying tea in a bunch of other countries. And I think my first or second week, two of my Egyptian friends just brought me to I don't know, it wasn't a tea house, but it was just a cafe, and it's basically English tea. I was so deceived. I thought it would be a completely unique experience. They just have English tea with milk and a lot of sugar, and they dip in these cookies. I think they call cookies biscuit or something. It just sounds like biscuit. And it was yummy, but I was just oh, this was anticlimactic. And then I did get to see the pyramids. IPSO sponsors a lot of nice trips for us, so it's not worth, so I've heard, going inside. So I rode a camel, and that was kind of surreal. The pyramids themselves are very surreal. There's going to be a Black Eyed Peas concert at the pyramids that I'm also attending. Really excited. But I mean, since I have a lot of people who are willing to show me around the city, I'm not really concerned about hitting anything. But all of the historical museums that they've taken us to have been really amazing. If you love history and art, definitely there's something for everybody. I myself used to work at art museums and history museums, so this has just been really crazy. I would just trail behind my group trying to take pictures of everything, because I was oh, I have to read it later. But I mean, yeah, I was supposed to go skiing yesterday. Apparently you can ski inside of this giant mall. If you come here, you'll find out that there's a surplus of malls. I don't know why, but there's 3 malls on every block, and they're all enormous. But yeah, you could go skiing or snowboarding inside a mall if you want to do that as well. But I suppose that's not exactly the cultural or immersive experience you were looking for. But I also really wanted to try Chinese food in Egypt, because there's kind of a small immigrant community in, I think, Madi, which is a nearby city. And I got to try Chinese food last night, and it was so strange because they used like different ingredients, but it tasted the same at the same time. So yeah, there's just like a lot. I mean, I think the best thing is just like don't have expectations and just say yes to everything, and then you're I don't know, you'll find out a lot more. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Lily. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you both.